I want to explain something to anybody that's listening. Now, I mentioned this, I think, in my reply video, my reply audio video um, to OTRS Central and Solomonster, and what they said in their videos with SummerSlam and, reviewing it and all. And one thing that came out of SummerSlam, which we pretty much all saw, I didn't see SummerSlam. I'm probably going to watch the replay and record it down the line, probably tomorrow before I go to work. But the one thing we got out of SummerSlam was well, we pretty much all predicted this. It was predicted long before the match occurred. Actually happened. And that was Nikki Bella turning on Brie. Now, pretty much this is going to lead into a Nikki versus Brie match, maybe at Night of Champions. But I think there is more to this than just Nikki versus Brie. A lot of people are reporting and rumoring that this is the match we've been wanting to see. We kind of got a tease of it back in, 2009, 2008, when they were both part of ECW, and you kind of got a tease of it there, and nothing happened. They just ended up back together. To me, this is leading into one thing. This is leading to something, and I said this, I think, before, and I'll say it again. I think I said this in my SummerSlam preview and predictions audio video, and I'll say it again here. And again, I think I even said it in my reply video that I just uploaded earlier yesterday. Basically, the reason for this feud, the real reason for this feud is it is the first step. It is the first step towards building. It's basically the first step towards building towards Daniel Bryan versus John Cena 2. That's what I feel is happening. Now you might say, "Oh, well, that's not going to happen because Daniel Bryan's on the shelf and now he's got this Tommy John surgery he's got to go through, and the earliest closest return date for him will be the Rumble and blah 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 blah." And I understand that. And believe me, if WWE Creative does this the right way, if they do this in a way that it needs to be done, this feud between the Bella sisters is going to do exactly what I'm saying it's going to do. It's going to lead to Cena versus Bryan 2, possibly at WrestleMania. And here's why. John Cena is portrayed as the kind of guy that, hey, I may not agree with what, where he could come out and say, I may not agree with what Nikki did, but if that's her decision, fine, I'll deal with it. And, that's it. He'll be the kind of guy that will say, I'll deal with it and all that when the time is right, So to me, I believe that's going to help. Something like that could help build towards John Cena and Daniel Bryan too. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly how it's going to happen, but I believe the Bella feud is the first step towards that. Think about it. Why else would you suddenly put Brie Bella in a main event spot, and now all of a sudden you have her sister Nikki joining her in that main event spot along with Stephanie McMahon? Why would you do that? You're doing it because you're building towards, well, not just Nikki versus Brie, but you're using that to catapult, but to slowly catapult towards building the foundation for Cena Bryan 2 next year, and like I said, possibly at WrestleMania. But again, you might disagree with that, and that's fine. You might say, well, that's stupid. That's stupid, Bryan. All that means is the Bella feud is just is nothing more than a build to that, and what's the reason for having the Bella feud if it's just going to be a building block to that? Because here's the reason. The reason you have the Bella feud is to add, I guess you could say, fuel to the fire. Take a look at it from the now heel Nikki standpoint, the heelish Nikki standpoint. Down the line, if WWE does this right and prolongs this feud and kind of has it go off and on throughout the rest of this year and into next year, you can have Nikki in her heel mode say, the only reason you married and fell in love with Daniel Bryan is because of the success he has. You don't really love him. You don't really care about him. All you care about is the spotlight that he has and the money he brings in. You never loved him. You never loved him, blah, blah, blah. And then she could add, and then they could have her add, and the difference, and that's the difference between you and me, because with John, I love John, naturally love John. I don't, love him for everything that he, has, the house, the cars, and all that. No, I love him for who he is. You only love Daniel Bryan because of what he's become. And that right there could start, like I say, the building blocks towards Cena Bryan 2, because then, from a story standpoint, both will get involved, whether John's the champion then or not. Both will get involved, and basically they'll have one more match, whether it's just a regular one-on-one match or for the championship if WWE decides to do that. They'll have that second match to not only possibly determine who's going to be the WWE World Champion if, let's say, Cena has the belt, but also determine who is indeed the best and see basically, to see who is the best. And if you want to throw the Bellas in there, basically see which Bella is telling the truth. Which Bella is, really, really, truly in love with somebody, and who's just pretending to be because of what that person is. I know, I know that sounds ridiculous to you, but to me, this is WWE, and I truly believe WWE, well, not truly believe, but I just truly feel that that's the reason for this. It's not because you want to continuously advance the Brie Stephanie feud, which is going to do as well. Don't get me wrong. But to me, it's mainly the building blocks right now to the Cena Bryan 2 match next year. That's why I see it's going. Because like I said, if WWE does this correctly and prolongs this feud where you have it go on like it is right now and then simmer down and then come back and then heat back up, simmer down, heat back up. Kind of in the fact that the feud's still there, but now they're off doing the other things. This is where it could lead towards if it's done right. I mean, if they fast track this feud between the Bellas, then there's going to be no point in having Cena versus Bryan 2. To me, from a creative standpoint, this prolonging it, letting it heat up like it's doing now, then simmer down, then heat back up, and then simmer down, then heat back up at the times they need it to heat, at the times they need it to, then it's going to help build towards that feud, because eventually you're going to have to involve John Cena, you're going to have to involve Daniel Bryan, and that's going to lead towards a match at WrestleMania, and whether it's for the championship or not, it's going to lead towards that match to see who is the best, who is the very best wrestler in the ring and in the WWE, as well as, from the Bella standpoint, see which Bella is truly in love with the boyfriend or husband and which one is pretending to be because all they want is the money, the power, the fame. And I know some of you might find that to be ridiculous. You might say, some of you might be like, oh, crap, we got to go through this again. We got to deal with this crap again. I don't want to go through this. I don't want to go through that. And, I don't blame you. I honestly don't blame you. But to me, I feel that's exactly what's happening here. I feel that's exactly where WWE is going with this. And you can dispute this all you want. But I feel WWE is heading in this direction. It's only natural. the only natural next step in this feud. I mean, think about it. Throughout, the decades and stuff, WWE has had feuds either between divas or superstars where the feud, it's still there, but it's kind of been prolonged to where, okay, when it starts up, it's heating. When it's first starting, it's heating up, and then it simmers down. And then when the time is right, you heat it back up again, and then you simmer it down again. Then you heat it back up, then you simmer it back down. And that, to me, is exactly what I feel they're going to have to do, hopefully, with the Bellas. Because if they want to go towards Cena, Bryan 2, which I believe is the reason for this, then you've got no other choice creatively if you want to use the Bellas, the Bella feud, as the starting point, than to go and do that. And if you want to put and if during this whole feud, this prolonged feud that will build towards Cena Bryan 2, if you want to put the Divas title on Nikki or put it on Brie and have them feud with that, and then maybe have one of them holding the belt as we approach towards Cena Bryan 2, and then have, let's say, Cena having the belt out, having the WWE World Championship belt, then that would work too. I mean, think about it this way. Even though Cena is still played as the babyface and will continuously be continuously do so for as long as he has to. Just imagine what will happen if you have Nikki with the Divas title and Cena with the WWE World title going into WrestleMania. That could create a very interesting scenario if this feud between the Bellas, if done right and prolonged correctly and creatively, helps build towards that rematch between Daniel and John. I mean, it would make a very interesting scenario, because just imagine the promos you could have between the two. Yes, the Bellas still have a lot of work to do on their promos, and everything. I'm not denying that. But with the help of John and Daniel, just imagine the exchange both could have. I mean, you would basically be having the crowd sort of almost with the neutral crowd or not, kind of be split down the middle, because you could have Nikki and John, not Nikki and John, but you can have Brie and Daniel kind of do like a work shoot in some of the promos about, now look at John Cena and Nikki. They're the power couple, and that's the only reason Nikki is pretending to love you, John, is because now she wanted to be part of a power couple. Now she has power, blah, blah, blah. And then you could have Nikki come out, maybe if the promo skills improve, and say, say something like, if the shoe was on the other foot or the belt was on the other shoulders, you guys would be the same way. Hey, and that's the only reason you married Daniel. I know it sounds ridiculous, folks. I know it sounds ridiculous that this is the way it's going to be. I mean, this is the way they're going to lead into it, but to me, it's the safest scenario. I mean, right now, you can't really build towards an actual match between Daniel and John because Daniel's out with the injury, and he's going to probably be out longer. So you can't really blame WWE for wanting to go in this direction to help slowly build towards it. Because like I said, and I know I'm sounding like I'm a broken record here, saying the same things over, but that is exactly why you have this feud happening. It's not just to advance Stephanie and Brie's feud, which I believe is going to climax at Hell in a Cell in what could possibly be the first all-diva Hell in a Cell match. Not saying it's to help climax to that, either at Hell in a Cell or even Survivor Series. What I'm saying is right now it's going to help slowly build towards that rematch between the two. And whether it's for the championship or it's not for the championship, it's up to WWE Creative of how they want to get there, but that's why this is happening. I just truly feel that's why they're doing this. I mean, quite honestly, with all due respect to the Bellas, okay, because they are improving in the ring. They are vastly improving in the ring. Promo-wise, mic-wise is a different story. But in the ring, they are vastly improving. So, with all due respect towards them, with all due respect, towards the Bellas, okay, they are only being used to get to this point. The feud is only happening right now because Daniel's out. I mean, it's like a lot of people have been saying. If not for Daniel Bryan's injury, the match that Brock Lesnar had at SummerSlam this past Sunday would have been him against Daniel. It would have been Lesnar and Bryan for the title. That's what it would have been. It wouldn't have been Lesnar Cena. Okay? It wouldn't have been that. It would have been Brock Lesnar, Daniel Bryan for the WWE World title. That's what it would have been. But that didn't happen. And you know why? Because Daniel's out with an injury. But you also got to remember something. You got to remember this. WWE always looks at the big match scenarios for the big fours. So basically, they need to find a way to build towards a big four, a big main event match for one of the big fours, mostly like WrestleMania. And what better way to do that than using a feud, using two ladies that, like I said, with all due respect, are improving in the ring, mic-wise, still need improvement. Why not use their feud, which is part of another feud, not part of another feud, but basically was born out of a current feud with, Stephanie McMahon. Why not have that be the building blocks? To me, that's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what's happening, whether you agree with it or not. So, that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. And you may not like the fact that the Bella feud is happening. And like I said, with all due respect to the Bellas, they may have a decent sister versus sister feud for the time, but all they are is just the building blocks. They're the building blocks to Cena versus Bryan 2, possibly at WrestleMania. You may think I'm wrong, and I might be wrong, but you know what? Why else would you start this feud? Why else would you go in this direction? Tell me that. Tell me that, folks. I mean, with all due respect, like I was trying to say earlier, does anybody really want to see the Bellas feuding? No. They don't really want to see the Bellas feuding because they'd rather see the Bellas, with due respect to anybody else, with all due respect to any fans out there, you'd rather see the Bellas as a team, as being together. So, to me, the only reason this is happening, and again, I apologize if I sound like a broken record, the only reason this is happening is because of the fact that WWE wants to build towards John Cena versus Daniel Bryan Part 2, possibly at WrestleMania. And the only way they're going to do that is to slowly prolong this feud, just like they've done a lot of other feuds and rivalries, to where it heats up at a certain time they needed to, then it simmers down, then they heat it back up at another time they needed to, then it simmers back down, and then by the time they get around WrestleMania season, you can heat it back up, and that helps fuel the fire to Cena versus Bryan 2. So, that's all I'm going to say on it. You let me know what you think, and I will talk to y'all later. I am out.